Hello. Right, I think I'm live, but I can see that my presentation isn't showing. Yeah, good afternoon all. I hope you're enjoying yourselves at EXI today. Here we go. Let's get the presentation live. Cool. So my name's Tom Broome. I'm the managing director at Quills, and we're a content marketing agency that's based in Colchester. So the areas that we specialise in, if I could start with just a little bit about ourselves and why I'm talking to you about this today, we specialise in marketing strategy. In the creation of what I think is exceptional written content with a team of really experienced and established writers. And we also do a lot of marketing training and consultancy. And really what our role is when we work with businesses in lots of different sectors, B2B, B2C, across the public sector as well, is developing longer term campaigns that meet a very specific goal or ambition for that business, which could be fixed around something to do with marketing, around something to do with growth or finance. But the important thing is that there's clarity over what that goal is so that we can create manageable steps for how it's reached. And in order to actually develop out a marketing campaign in that way and to do it effectively, what you need to do is understand in depth who the audience is and the optimum ways to reach out to them. So I think probably for the last 12 months, and a lot of you will have noticed this, there's been a lot of what's been coined as pivoting. I think it's a nice jargon term, but what it really means is sitting within your business and trying to identify whether new markets are emerging that you can maybe direct your business towards. But I think a lot of businesses have seen their existing markets disappear as well. So it's pivoting that's been forced. And most of us will be quite keen to jump on those new opportunities, and a lot of us might have been quite desperate to make sure that they don't slip through the net. And so what I wanted to do with this talk, with all of that in mind and everything that's happened across the last 12 months of business, is to focus on what are some marketing fundamentals and things that you really need to consider before you embark upon a new marketing campaign that looks to maybe grab one of those new opportunities in the market. So when we start working with a new client at Creative Quills, what we do is we spend a big chunk of the initial strategic session that we have with them focusing on identifying their audience. And it's absolutely critical. Before we start doing anything in terms of activity, we have to know who it's for and the type of things that are going to make that particular audience tick. So what I wanted to do today is run through some of the exercises that we go through to gather that kind of information so that we can build a complex picture that's going to help us map out the most efficient and effective way to reach those people. So here's just a kind of a brief summary of what I want to talk about today over the next 20 minutes or so. So we're going to have a look at marketing objectives and the things to consider there. We're going to build out what you would need to look at to think about target markets. We're going to look a bit at buyer personas as well and how that kind of is different from target markets. And then a little bit at the end on channels and actually the routes to finding the people that we're looking to target. So to achieve success, I think, as I've already touched on in the very beginning of this talk, any campaign, any marketing campaign that you're running has to have clear objectives. And I think the important thing to remember with this is they don't have to be outrageously ambitious. It's not about taking on the world. It's about having things that are clearly defined so that you can plan a route to reaching them. So if we think about that within a marketing kind of context, and I know there's lots of people who are attending today from lots of different sectors, so I'll keep it quite broad, but it could be that you have a mailing list that you send regular direct mail. And what you want to do is retarget 25 previous clients and convert 3 of those into new sales with a new offer. That could be a really defined objective. It could be that if you're looking to build engagement on Twitter, for example, that you set yourself the objective of 1,000 new followers over a 3-month period. And then you know that you're really focusing your resource in that area. It could be that if you're holding an event, a digital event, a webinar, it could be that you're planning a physical event. Just imagine that actually you want X amount of tickets sold, and you can set yourself that target of 100 tickets sold for an event that you're holding. So as you can see, this isn't taking on the world. It's not talking about millions and millions of pounds of turnover. It's about setting something that you can really feel, something that you can reach towards. And what this does is it gives you a clear framework that really allows you to evaluate your success, because you know whether you have hit that target or not. And those are things that you could learn from. So now that we've got our objectives, or we're thinking about the objectives that we're reaching towards, we need to start identifying the target markets that are going to help us achieve those objectives. So a kind of a definition to kick things off with of the difference between target markets and buyer personas. So the target market looks at groups of people that share similar characteristics or commonalities, things that they potentially have in common. Whereas buyer personas, which is what we're going to move on to on the next couple of slides, that looks at individuals and actually what makes them tick as on a kind of independent level. So what we've got here are a few stats that we've pulled together that actually demonstrate why tailoring your marketing to your target market is really important. So we've got here that 74% of customers feel frustrated when the content is not personalized to them, and 59% say that personalization influences their shopping decisions. So as you can see, there's a good kind of evidence there that you really need to be focusing on those audiences and the kind of things that they'd be hoping to hear. So the interesting thing about target markets is that they are data driven. So it means that when you're building them, you can use lots of data to really inform what they look like to quite a detailed level. So four of the things that you can potentially look at when you're building out your target markets would be things like size. And there's two ways of looking at that. It could be the size of the market. So, if you're selling into that specific market, how big is it? Is there 4 people within the whole of the UK that would be your target market? Or is this something that within every town, there's dozens and dozens of potential customers? The other way of looking at that is about the market itself and the businesses within it, if this is B2B, of course, and the size of those companies. So, for example, if you're targeting a business, do they need to have a minimum number of staff for your particular solution to be viable? The other thing, of course, to look at would be sector and industry. So targeting companies or people that work within a specific sector. Geography as well. Where in the world are they? How can you focus on the kind of things that would affect someone in Colchester compared to someone who is in South Africa, for example? And lastly, we want to think about the value of those target markets. And again, that can break down in a couple of ways. It's about whether the financial value. So actually, how much does that particular sale make for you? Is it a particularly lucrative market for you because each sale is quite high margin? The other side of that is it a big percentage of your business? So actually this target market makes up 60, 70, 80% of your potential turnover. So I mean, that's obviously a very important part of your business that you need to really focus on. So we thought about the target markets, but of course, within those target markets, you have individuals, and these are your ideal clients and the decision makers, the people that you are selling directly to, who are going to decide whether to invest in your service or your product, or whether it's not actually for them. So again, we've pulled some stats together here that just talk about buyer personas and why they are important to businesses. So we've got here 71% of companies who exceed their revenue goals have documented buyer personas. So we can all spend lots of time thinking about the types of people and kind of pulling together maybe an idea of who we're working with at the moment. Yeah, I think they would think this. They said that to me in an offhand way. Getting that down on paper and building something that is more concrete is going to be really, really helpful in planning future campaigns. Exactly the same with this second statistic here. 90% of companies who are using personas have a clearer understanding of their buyers. Of course they do. As we've just said, it's not pulling ideas out of the air. It's carefully documented and often backed up with data. And 82% of companies using personas have created an improved value proposition. Again, that is what business is about, and about kind of differentiating yourselves from your competitors. It is about proving your value and knowing who your audience is, and to a certain extent who you're competing with helps you to give additional value to those people. So when you're thinking of pulling together buyer personas, what you want to be doing is taking a blank slate, as we see in this picture here, and beginning to fill it in. And the important thing is you can have multiple buyer personas in the same way as you can have multiple target market groups. The key thing is to build out a blueprint. Now, not every individual is different, of course, but having a blueprint of the way in which people in a similar well, in a similar business maybe, or in a similar time of their life may well act is a good starting point. So some of the things you might want to think of when you're building out your buyer personas will be the demographics. So the simple things like age, gender, job title, education, income. Then you want to think about their interests. So this would be both personally or professionally, depending on what it is that you're doing. If it's a B2C product or service that you're selling, then you might want to think about whether that individual is more interested in fashion or gaming or I don't know, it may be marketing, it may be a number of different things, but thinking about what it is that makes them excited, that makes them happy. Then thinking about the budget. I mean, that's something that clearly everyone in business needs to be concerned with. Are you targeting an audience who can actually pay for your services? If you're not, then it potentially is back to the drawing board. When we think about pain points for an individual as well, these are a problem that individual will have. So within a business that is potentially struggling, if you're selling a product that solves that, then understanding what the problems are, maybe it's a problem with retention of staff, for example. They've got a high turnover of people leaving them. Maybe they're in the position where they're struggling to, to make sales. If you understand what that pain point is, you can use your product or your service as the solution for that. And that's an easy way of building a good reputation and a good relationship with those potential buyers. And the last thing, when we talk about trigger points, these are the kind of goals and motivations. These are the things that that person is listening out for. So if they were to engage with a piece of your marketing or promotional material, what's going to make them sit up and go, ah, yes, that's for me. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So once you've got a good idea of what those buyers look like and have built out their personas, here's some questions that you might want to ask. And it's all going to be speculative. You know, you are assuming a lot of the answers, but things you might want to pose the question as that individual, you know, what is that individual looking for? Where do they spend their time? What kind of things would grab their attention? What would turn them off as well, which is always quite important. And as we talked about with the pain points, does this product solve my problem? And as I've said, you can create multiple personas and use them as a blueprint. And it could be that you create them for different services within your business. It could be that a different persona in each marketplace. But however you do it, keep it really well defined and revisit it regularly as well to make sure that it still rings true once you have more information at your disposal. So once you have your target market and your buyer personas nailed down and documented, as we've said earlier on, what you can do is create content that appeals directly to them. And then you need to think about putting it where they're likely to see it. So in order to do that, what we need to think about is the different areas or strands of marketing and which ones you're likely, or which areas or platforms you're likely to find your chosen buyer. So as this table demonstrates, there's lots of different strands to marketing. And I'm going to have a very quick run through because I'm conscious not to teach people to suck eggs, but obviously you've got PR on the left-hand side there, so public relations, the idea of press releases may be going out in newspapers, it may be that you are on television or on the radio promoting your product through advertising, which is the next strand there, print, which, you know, maybe has taken a bit of a hit recently as we've been embracing digital more, but I think there's still definitely space for that kind of direct approach if you have a really clear understanding of who you're delivering to. A nice glossy brochure could still do the job. Social media as well, and there's lots of different platforms. You know, this isn't an exhaustive list, and again, it's about thinking about exactly who is right for your business. And the digital marketing and the kind of different areas that are involved in that, which is again very data driven. It's about creating ads, it's about making sure that they are optimized and constantly tailored and tinkered with to get the results that you're looking for. And then on the right hand side, you've got content marketing, which is where we sit, which is the creation of assets, the creation of content that is written or created for a very specific audience to ask them to do a certain thing. It may be educating them, it may be asking them to act in a specific way, but often within the content marketing sphere, you're creating the assets that are then used across lots of these other strands. So what we're talking about here is choosing one or some of these, the ones that were really going to resonate with your target audience. Because if you put them in a place where they're unlikely to be, of course, they're unlikely to engage with it. So looking back at your personas, and thinking about the picture of that person that you have built, are they the type of person who's more likely to be picking up a paper or listening to the radio, to the local radio, or are they going to be scrolling through Facebook? Again, we're making assumptions here. Of course we are, and we are generalizing, but it's an important part of at least the first kind of testing of the type of marketing output that you're doing. Yeah, and I guess that's a really good point, maybe to kind of press forward on as well, that you really should be backing this up with research as well. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can speak to your existing audience and find out more about them that way. Hopefully, you're working with your ideal client. Hopefully, you're working with a key decision maker, and the personas can be built out of that. And you can ask them questions about why they are working with you. What is it that particularly appeals? And use that as the basis for future marketing material. You also might want to look at competitors in the space that you're operating. What does their output look like? Where are they currently operating? And are they successful with it? And of course, you can only really see that from the outside. But again, you can make assumptions on that based on the research that you do. I think it's also really important to be prepared to adapt, so that if something isn't working, then you can shift. You can try something different. Maybe your initial assumptions weren't quite right, but use that. Take that information, take that to inform the buyer personas and the target markets that you documented earlier, because clearly there's some disconnect between what you thought and what the reality really was. So while all of this is going on, make sure you are continuously capturing data. And this could be monitoring traffic to your website, especially if it's in that kind of digital marketing, social media end. That could be very important to how you're judging the success of your campaign. It could be engagement on one of your social media platforms. So you put something out on Instagram, and it's getting a huge amount of engagement in terms of likes, in terms of comments. That again, you've judged to be success in terms of what you were trying to achieve. Again, it could be something to do with the direct mail that you're sending out. What's the open rate like? If the open rate is high, fantastic. Then obviously you're doing something right. If not, if few people are engaging with it, why? What could we do to maybe test that slightly differently? A different subject line, for example, that might make people more inclined to be engaging with the mail that you're sending out. But only by reviewing that data and doing it regularly can you continue to do things that make a difference and change the way in which your campaign is delivering. So as a very short summary there, as I come to an end, as it says on the screen, marketing means knowing who you're after, what they want, and how to reach them. So hopefully some of the bits that we've run through today will resonate with you, and you could be in the position to go away and maybe build out some of those target markets, think about those buyer personas in a little bit more detail. And yeah, hopefully there are opportunities out there for you to go and grab. So